This is the Military Bottom Line Podcast, episode 89.
Yeah, you're just essentially almost asleep while walking. And then as soon as you take contact, any type of shots, the adrenaline dump is there. I mean, you're just wide awake after that.
Welcome to the Military Bottom Line Podcast, where we learn from veterans and those currently serving how to make the most out of a military contract. We're here to motivate, inspire, and help you leverage your service to positively impact you professionally, personally, and financially during your military career and beyond. What's going on, everybody? Today, I am joined with David Hopkins. David is a Marine Corps Infantryman veteran who was part of 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines out of Camp Pendleton and did a crazy deployment to Afghanistan in 2011 timeframe. And so David tells us his story about why he joined the Marine Corps, his time in the Marine Corps, his super wild deployment to Afghanistan where he stepped on a landmine and lived to tell the tale. We also segue into his transition out of the military and how he had to use VR&E, veteran rehabilitation and employment, to finish his college degree, because it ultimately took him 8 years to finish his degree in mechanical engineering after separating from the Marine Corps. And so obviously you can't use GI Bill for 8 years. And so he was able to utilize VR&E in conjunction with his GI Bill. And so he was ultimately able to get his degree done. And I think he's got a lot of insight to share and just perspective to share. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode. David, what's going on, man? Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for sending me the invite, man.
Yeah, dude, we're gonna cut to the chase because of that minor hiccup. So let's start. I'd love to hear your story, and let's start with when and why you joined the military in the first place.
So when I was younger, I really had it out like in my mind that I wanted to join the military at a young age. I remember like my mother had some people around and he was storing some stuff at our house or whatever. And there was like I have a picture like of me where I was young, like 5-6 years old with like a little flak jacket on and a Kevlar. And it looks funny. And I have it actually in a side-by-side photo with like my photo when I was in boot camp of like being in the Marine Corps. But I always knew at a young age like I wanted to join the military. I'm not entirely sure what drew me to it. I know a lot of us as like kids and stuff like had video games growing up. You know, some people joined because like, they play Call of Duty and I think it's gonna be the same thing or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. You know, I just decided to I knew at a young age I wanted to do it. And so I think that was like the primary thing, maybe just to prove to yourself, to be something bigger. But
yeah. Why the Marine Corps? Is it just like you went shopping and the Marines are the one that got you?
Oh, I would say not necessarily. I initially thought about like going into the Navy, right? And like joining the Navy SEALs.
Yeah.
So, except I didn't know too much about it. I didn't have any like mentors or anyone that was going to specifically like give me the step-by-step route of how to do that, right? And I know that like, especially in the SEALs, they have such a high attrition rate, right? So like, not to like psych yourself out, because from what I hear from a lot of people, it's a very mental thing, right? You could be the most buff, physically fit guy and they could still break you. But the thing is like, it wasn't a for sure thing for me, right?
Yeah.
I sort of knew that I wanted to go into a combat role. But specifically in the SEALs, like I didn't want to go in there and then maybe get separated, due to medical condition or like tapping out or failing.
Yeah.
And then getting recycled into the Navy into a job that I don't want to do. Right. So I pictured myself like, I'm going to go try it out and do it. But then like, if there is that doubt, right. If there is any of me failing, I didn't want to get stuck on a ship, like scrubbing toilets with a toothbrush for 5 years or something. You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
But yeah, definitely. I mean, we both know Mr. Townsend and stuff. And like when I was around like middle school, high school age, it was one of my things. I remember writing down like middle school somewhere, like I got these certain things I want to do by the age 30. And like one of them was like join the Navy
Mm.
SEALs or something like that, right?
That's right, because
Because
you were around the Townsends prior to the Marine Corps, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, I forgot about that.
But like I wanted to do something like that because it was like extreme, right? I was always being like kind of like a go-getter where I want to do something that's like against the grain or something that's
Yeah,
hard.
yeah.
But I didn't see too many. You just hear about them on TV and stuff like, oh, these guys are doing these special operations and they're just like clandestine and
Hmm.
they're hailed as heroes and no one really knows too much about them. I don't know. I kind of like that, but um, it
So, do you think
wasn't until like,
were you
oh, go
looking
ahead.
for something specifically? Like when you joined, were you looking for combat? Were you looking for benefits? Were you looking for like what was it? What was it that you were like hoping to achieve, experience, or accomplish through the military?
So initially, like before I joined the military, I was in high school and I was doing terrible. I wasn't getting good grades and stuff like that. And then I have a father who comes from a Hispanic background. He's just wanting me to work, work, work all the time. And
Hmm.
it's like, yeah, I'm 16 years old, right? And I don't have that much guidance in my life, and I'm not doing very good at school. And at the time, I was also playing in a band. I grew up playing guitar and stuff like that, and it was fun. But as soon as I turned 18 years of age, basically my birthday present was, hey, you can start paying rent now, right?
Ah,
And so like,
nice.
mind you, it was only at the time, this is back in 2008.
Yeah.
It was only like he wanted me to pay like $200 of rent, right?
Hmm.
But at the time I'm working like, at a Subway making like $8.35 an hour and like
Yeah.
not even working 40 hours a week. So it's like, dude, that's like my whole, that's like my
Uh-huh.
whole like my check of like basically 2 weeks. And
Yep.
then it's like, I wanted some independence because at the time I'm like, how am I going to pay for the rent, and then like I'm supposed to pay for my own car, pay insurance, pay gas,
Mm.
pay for musical instruments that are expensive, and do all this stuff. And in my head, it's like I'm going to be stuck here. I was
Mm.
like, I don't want to be stuck in my house under my parents' rule and stuff like that.
Yep.
So for me, it was a thing to break out of that and kind of go be independent. Now, when I went to the recruiter, there was a couple things going out. I took my ASVAB. I scored, you know, average or higher, 60 to 80%, whatever the numbers
Yeah.
were. And I had some roles open up. And I think one of them that interested me was being like a maintenance or like a mechanic for like a helicopters, right? So that was one of them. And I thought that was pretty cool. And then like there was other ones and I just chose and I went in and I said, I want to go into the infantry
Mm.
because I figured, I was going to the Marine Corps and it's like, if you're going to be a bear, you might as well be a grizzly. You know what I'm saying? That's the saying that I hear. So, so yeah, needless to say, I went in and I signed a contract for the infantry. And not only was it a 4 year, it was like a 5 year. So it was
Oh
like
shoot.
it was an additional year, right? And like
Yeah.
an extended year.
Yep.
Yeah, my recruiter really put that one on me, but it was like an extension, right? So like you do your 4 years, but you get additional fifth year, and you get like a $7,500 signing bonus.
Got
And
it.
it's like, dude, for an 18-year-old, like $7,500
Doesn't take
sounds like
much.
sounds like a pretty good deal, man, right?
Yeah.
And um, so yeah, I went ahead and I signed that 5 year contract to go in as infantry, and then I had about maybe 5 years. I'm sorry, a couple of months, like 5 months, 6 months before I was actually slated to go to boot camp. So all this took place in like November of 2008. My
November
birthday's in
28th.
October, so like this is about a month and a half after I
Okay.
had turned 18, right? And I'm trying to figure things out. So
Yeah. So you,
right
so
around that time, right around that time in December, I decided to go visit my mother because she was out in Oklahoma while I was in California. So I
got
flew
it.
out there for like December timeframe around Christmas and spent all that time out there prior to joining in May of 2009.
Got it. Got it. So you joined the Marine Corps in 2008 in the infantry. What kind of a high level bird's eye view? Because we got a lot of ground to cover. So high level,
Yeah.
of your 5 years in the Marine Corps as an infantryman. Were you an 0311 rifleman or
Yeah,
platoon
yeah. I
leader?
was 0311 rifleman. So once you
Okay.
first start out in boot camp, you're just doing your basic training.
Yeah.
And then once you graduate there, you go to on either the West Coast or East Coast, you go to SOI, which is School of Infantry. They also call it ITB, which is the Infantry Training Battalion.
Yeah.
And then from there, that's a 8-week course where you go through. So roughly 2 months after you're doing your 13 weeks at boot camp. So you do 3 months, get your little, 2 weeks of leave or whatever.
Hmm.
And then I went to the School of Infantry. And then for the first half of the course, so basically the first 4 weeks of the month, you're doing all your tactics and you're going out in the field and training and doing a lot of shooting and ranges and stuff like that. And then it's usually about in the middle when they decide to split you up into your specialty MOS. So once you go in, you're 03XX, whatever it is, right? You just blank slate. And then once you get to the halfway mark, you get put into a 11, which is a rifleman, and a 21 recon, or a 31 machine gunner, 41 mortarman, assaultman,
Yeah.
whatever the specialty is. And it's funny enough, when I was in that phase of where they're going to decide where they want to split up into, you know, they were asking, hey, I remember specifically whoever the platoon sergeant was the staff sergeant, and he asked, hey, anybody who wants to be, 11, come here. Who wants to be a machine gunner, come here. And he's like, who wants to be recon, come over here, right? And I was thinking recon is like those, like kind of clandestine again guys. And it's like, I could do that. And then he's, trying to scare people away. Oh, they're gonna drown you in the pool and this and that. I was like, yeah, I'm expecting that, right?
Hmm.
And we had a class of about 100 people. And he's like, okay, so all the people who are contract recon, so basically people who were signed in from prior to boot camp, when they're signed their contract, they're coming in to be specifically going slated to go to recon. And he's like, everybody who's contract recon, stand in this line. Everybody who wants to volunteer, stand in this line. And so out of that 100 people class, like 90 to 100 people, we had like probably 30 of them standing in that line. So like a third of the class. And
Volunteered
then
or contracts?
contracts.
Okay.
And then so you look over, I'm the I'm the only person
Yeah.
in the line to volunteer. And the staff sergeant looks at me, like looks past me, like, like trying to think I'm crazy or something. And he's like, you sure about this? You want to do this? I'm like, yeah, I want to do it. And he's like, I'm sorry, man. He's like, I can't let you. He's like, I got too many contracts, so
Mm.
that was that. And so I just got cycled to go into as a basic, rifleman, but it was a good time. So
And,
I completed that. And then I finally joined the fleet in like late October, early November of 2009.
and you got stationed back in California where you were living, right?
Yeah, yeah, because I originally lived in Oceanside, which was like, it was just like my back door.
Right there.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I got stationed there in Pendleton, in California,
Was
and
that
then that
disappointing?
was um
I don't know if
honestly,
that'd be
like
cool or
like
bad.
yeah, it was because I got to go home and see family and
Yeah.
just be close to friends and everything. In retrospect, I think it was cool because there's so many worse stations. Like I would have hated to
Yeah.
be in 29 Palms. I
Yeah.
think honestly, I wanted to be international. I think when I put down my selection for my duty stations I wanted to go to, I think I originally might have put down Okinawa
Hmm.
as one of them because I just figured, oh, it's Japan, but like knowing now where it's at and like all that stuff, like
Yeah.
yeah, it's probably best I didn't go there. But
Yeah.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was a good time.
Right on. Right on. And so you did a couple deployments throughout that time, right?
Yeah, yeah. So during the entirety of my 5 years, I went on 2 deployments. I did one in 2010 to
Okay.
Afghanistan, and then I got back like mid 2011. And then I did the 15th MU in like September of 2012 and got back around May of 2013. So that was about an 8-month deployment. The first one to Afghanistan was about 6 or 7 months.
Okay. How would you compare and contrast combat deployment to Afghanistan versus a MU?
Oh man, it's night and day. Because the place we went to, I never mentioned, but I was in 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines.
Mm.
And we got deployed to Sangin in Afghanistan. And that place was just kinetic all the time.
Mm.
So I mean, the first day I landed, I'm coming off of the helo. Like we there's so many phases to get to there, right? We had to go here and there and go to Romania, and then we chilled out at Air Force Base in Kyrgyzstan a couple days, to get used to the time changes, and then we went down to I believe it's Camp Bastion or Camp Leatherneck they called
Mm-hmm.
it in Afghanistan, and that was about a maybe hour helicopter ride from where our forward operating base was going to be. And then we stayed in Camp Leatherneck for about a week. But the very first day that I pulled into where our fob was, Fob Jackson, we came in under the cover of night. So it's like, like 3 o'clock in the morning coming
Mm.
into, one of those big like Super Stallion helicopters. I believe
Yeah.
they're the
53.
CH-53s.
Yeah.
And so we got out the back of that, and then it stays on my pack outside where my hab was going to be because it was still like pitch black in the night and I couldn't see much. And then I wake up.
What's going on in your head? Like you're in Afghanistan, your first time to
Uh-huh.
Afghanistan. It's pitch black out, and you know that you're getting dropped off from a helo in the middle of nowhere. Like
Well,
what's going through your head?
so it was like technically we're still in like a base here, right? So it's
Okay.
all covered. I'd say it's like a square. It was like a big square, and each direction was about maybe half a kilometer. So it's a relatively
Okay.
huge forward operating base. We got
Okay,
dropped off
fair.
there. And like it was the first day there, and like I'd maybe try to nap a little bit between the hours of like 4 or 5 where I was at to like 6 to where I finally met up with um my squad that was there and
Yeah.
stuff. And then like it was like maybe a little bit after lunch and like towards dawn when like the base started taking contact. I'm like, dude, this is my first day here, and
No
they're already
kidding.
taking incoming shots and everything. It was
Like
quite a eye
mortars, or what
opener.
kind of stuff? What kind of stuff were
Or
you
it's
taking that
just like
quickly?
small arms weapon and stuff. But there's people
Okay.
running out with their gear on, going out to the post and stuff, and getting on top of the Hesco barriers and returning fire. I'm like, dude,
No
this
kidding.
is my first day here. Like, what's going on?
Were you
But yeah,
excited, or were you more like, oh crap, like this is pretty real?
it's kind of a mixture of all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, well, I mean, it all kind of came down because I wasn't part of like um, the entire battalion that rolled out. They went out, and then I came out like maybe another 3 weeks after the entire battalion had landed. So they needed some people to stay back in the rear and whatnot. And
Hmm.
so I stayed back in Pendleton for like maybe 2, 3 weeks. But during that time frame, like we'd have like the colonel and like the sergeant major at the battalion like come in and like, hey, who knows this guy? This, oh yeah, everyone would raise their hand because they got us all together, right? All the people that were kind of staying back and like, oh well, this person just got killed the other day, and this and this,
Mm.
and it's like that's you already had that mentality of like, wow, this is already happening, and
Mm.
that's real. So once I'm landing, you had to be like pretty alert, I guess. I'd say
Yeah.
we already knew the danger, right? Because there were some people that like they were back there where I was at. One of my actually roommates, um, he ended up going UA like before we even deployed and stuff. And so like, yeah, that was a pretty big
To
deal,
to avoid the deployment.
I think so. Yeah.
No
I don't
kidding.
know. I don't know what's all going on in the dude's head or whatever, but
Mm. Mm.
yeah.
So what? I mean, I don't want to like have to dig into that deployment, but so one combat deployment, was that enough for you, or did you have desires for more? Like, what was that whole 6-7 months like for you?
Well, it was really kinetic, man. The entire time. Um, you know, I want to say it was enough. Uh, one of my buddies got killed like on the Marine Corps birthday, November
Mm.
10th, when we were out there. And that was like maybe like 2 weeks after I had landed.
Man.
And so after that we were doing a patrol to the south of where our, forward operating base was, and just scouting out the area looking for these people and whatnot. And that was like my third week in the country, dude. And we were doing an operation. We were clearing out a whole bunch of buildings that were pretty much next to each other because we didn't want to use a soft packed road. I mean, this road ran for like 400 or 500 meters, And so we were using the buildings and like C4 charges that we were putting on them, blowing through all these buildings.
Mm.
And within a time frame, we started this operation like 3 a.m, right? We staged and got out the wire and did all this. And we probably were clearing this area, like going through house to house. Some of them had people, some of them were abandoned compounds. And within that time frame of like 12, 13 hours, we cleared through that section of road. We probably found like 10 or more IEDs in the ground.
Wow.
And during that time, that was when I was there for my second or third week.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually ended up stepping on one, right? So I put mind you, this is kind of crazy, right?
Yeah.
So one of my team leaders was telling me, hey, my last name's Hopkins. He's like, hey, Hopkins, go and provide security on this area here, because we had blown a hole through one of the walls, and we're in the back of this compound, and some of it's concrete slab, right? And then the other part is like dirt.
Yeah.
But it leads out to like this area where there's a courtyard in the front where there's probably the big swing gates, but it looks super sketch. We don't want to go out there. That's where like the road that we're clearing adjacent to it is. And he's like, hey, just post up on this corner and just make sure you're watching that sector there, so no one's coming into the corridor, right? So we don't like get surprised. And he specifically told me, this is the dumb part on me, right? He specifically told me, hey, stay right here, stay on the concrete and this and that. And we had already swept this area with a mine detector and didn't pick up anything. And just me kind of just dumb, I kind of, to get a look or whatever, I stepped off, and like I was kind of shuffling because I have all my weight of my flak jacket and my water and my grenades and all the ammunition. It weighs you down. And so your knees, you don't want them to like lock them or like have them buckle, and it's a little bit discomforting because it's a lot of weight. So I'm just kind of like shuffling in place, moving around back and forward. And then I noticed my foot like touched the ground, and it squeezed down, right? And it felt weird. It felt like, I don't know if you've ever seen like a jellyfish like in the sand, and like I'm sure you probably stepped on it or whatever, right? It felt like that, but like in the ground. It had some give to it. But the thing is, like, usually you'd be able to tell if it was previously in place, because if they take off the dirt, it's going to have a darker appearance because the sun's already baked the rest of it, but it had none of that. So that's telling us it's been there a while. Either way, I stepped on it and I felt the ground just give. And this was like from the ball of my foot forward. So it was literally just my toes. And I kind of just squeezed my foot in my boot as like a double check. I didn't press down on it, but I just kind of moved my toes. And sure enough, like I backed up off of it, and we have our own standard operating procedures of how we deal with it. We call it the 5s and 25s, right? You look in your immediate area and you're looking for any indicators, and you look without. But I got down on I put my heels together, like, how how in boot camp, you have like little, yellow footprints or whatever. I got down and I started sweeping the ground with the tips of my fingers. And sure enough, I uncovered, like, it was like a little bit of like a trash bag. And then I swept more. And then within the trash bag was the pressure plate. I saw wires. After that, I saw like little ant trail leading. And then that was enough indicators for me. So I was able to, like, within my tiny little, like, square foot that I was in, I hopped back onto where the concrete was. And lucky enough, we had the explosive ordnance disposal people attached to us within that patrol. So they went ahead and they investigated it and, found out it was like an IED. Don't quote me, but I believe it was like maybe like 10 to 15 pounds of homemade explosives inside of like a pressure cooker that was like buried underneath it deep enough. And then the battery pack was like elsewhere, and it was like inside of a wall. And these walls are like thick mud walls. They make them out of mud and twigs, but after they harden, they have pretty good durability. But either way, it was inside there.
That's intense, man. That's intense.
Yeah. And so
No, go ahead.
that was like my second or third week in country, right?
Yeah.
And already after having some of my friends killed and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then like having myself almost just got, killed in that instant, that was a real big eye opener. I was there my third week, and I'm like, dude, I got another 6 months. I got to be here.
Hmm.
Like, I can't be letting this happen. Like, I have to look out and make sure I'm in tune and attentive to like
Yeah.
everything that's going around me. And so, like, yeah, from there on, I was very cautious with everything I was doing because not enough, I'm probably that was a like one lucky
Yeah.
scenario where I was just lucky enough to not step on it
Hmm.
with all my weight or with the
Yeah.
foot, and I was also trained enough, well enough to be able to recognize the symptoms of like what the indicators were prior to that,
Did
going off, and
did the weight of
yeah,
that
so I was really lucky.
situation, like, did the weight of that situation hit you at the time, or was it more just like, training kind of kicks in and all you're thinking about is like the procedures? When did like the weight of the situation actually
The
hit
weight
you?
of that situation honestly didn't hit me till later. Like when it first happened, I was just like, laughing and like
Hmm.
smoking and joking with my, but after that, like I got into the compound we were in. It was like a 3-story like concrete building. I asked a buddy for a cigarette, and we probably lit one up, and we're just smoking and
Yeah.
just talking about how crazy it is and just laughing about it and whatnot. But the weight of the situation didn't hit me till I got back to my patrol base that night.
Mm.
And I was inside of my hab, and there's not that I remember, there wasn't much electricity, or we probably turned the lights on at a certain time. It's just pitch black, and like I'm on a little cot, and
Yeah.
I'm like laying in bed, and it's just me and myself, and it's pitch black in my thoughts. And like
Yeah.
at that point it kicked in, and like I'm not gonna lie to you, I sat in my rack, and I'm just like bawling to myself,
Yeah.
like dude,
Yeah.
I almost got blown to pieces right now. And so that was, yeah, it was a big weight once it hit me. But I think after that day, I started taking everything with being very cautious and being
Yeah.
very aware of your surroundings, because
Does it
these types of explosives were prevalent. They were
yeah.
everywhere. There was just
Yeah.
this whole place was riddled with them.
Does it not change? I mean, I can't imagine, because you gotta get up in the morning and do it again. Like what
Yeah, yeah. You
like
gotta
what
you gotta get up and do it again
what's
the
in
next
your
day,
head the
man.
next day when you're told, all right, we're going on another patrol?
Well, I remember like one of the first patrols I did, like I was actually at the point, I was the point man, and I was
Hmm.
carrying the Valen, which is one of those um it's like a metal detector, right?
Yeah.
And like there's straps on it because the thing's long. The thing's like maybe like a good like 5 feet long once you fully, telescope out
Yeah.
the portion that detects all the metal and stuff. And so it comes like these little like Velcro straps that you can put around your arm, right? And then you're basically just have your elbow locked to your side, and you're trying to sweep and get any type of audio cues of what's in the dirt and stuff.
Hmm.
But like doing that for like an hour or two or three on end, like your arms just, dude, your arms get so tired.
Yeah.
But it's something you got to do. And because of the high threat of the explosives over there, we had to resort to basically just moving in a ranger file. We can't use the conventional tactics that we've trained with and move in like, wedges and echelons and stuff
Hmm.
like that unless you're on a hard pack, like
Yeah.
essentially concrete.
Yeah.
Um, because the threat was just so high up there. So
Mm.
that was the main thing that was concerning for most of the Marines that were deployed out there. I could care less if I'm getting shot at, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to hit me or you have to be accurate. But it's like now you're getting shot at. What's the reason? Like you see a berm that looks perfect to go take cover. It's like
Mm.
the dude knows that he's going to shoot at you in a certain point to want you to go take cover over there so you can detonate something. And like
Mm.
it was a lot of mind games you got to play out there, and you've got to be
Man.
one step ahead of them in a sense.
Man.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that was only the beginning
Seriously.
of that deployment. But yeah,
Man.
there's a lot of good times out there though. I'm glad I made it out alive. Had all my 10 fingers and toes, and
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. No kidding. No kidding. Was it on this deployment that you're like, okay, I think one contract's enough, or when did you decide, I'm not going to stay in?
I would say probably after I got back from that deployment, right? Um, yeah, I would probably. yeah, probably once I got back. I know that there's like some of those people that they keep chasing that high of like,
Mm,
you want to do that and be in the combat constantly. It has a very taxing toll
yeah.
on your body physically, right? Like I've never been so fatigued
Mm,
until I came back from a combat deployment. Like all I wanted to do was sleep,
mm,
right? Because you're just constantly like rotating out of post, right? You're like doing 6 hours on, 6 hours off, and like you might do that for a couple of days at a time. So sometimes you're standing like 12 hours of post in a day and stuff. And like
yeah.
some of it's like, like midnight to like 6 in the morning, and you do that
Mm,
constantly. But then like you get off at 6 and you have to patrol at 8. But then it's like you're hungry, so you got to go eat food at breakfast at like 6, and then you got to do your pre-combat checks and your inspections to make sure you have all your gear and it's all staged and everything. And then by
mm,
that time, it's already time to go out the wire, and you haven't slept since midnight. So you're just basically walking out in the Afghan heat, right? And you're just like you're like a zombie. I
oh
mean,
my goodness.
you don't want to appear that way to people
Yeah.
while you don't want to be slouching and moving, because then they're going to notice that and you're
Yeah.
going to be the one that gets hit. But yeah, you're just essentially almost asleep while walking, and
Man.
then as soon as you take contact, any type of shots, the adrenaline dump is there. I mean, you're just wide awake after that. But
So you're just bouncing between like exhaustion and adrenaline. Exhaustion, adrenaline. Like you
yeah,
never
on a constant basis, and I think there has to be some type of
yeah.
medical term or some type of effect for that, because I mean anybody who's taken like biology um and like anthropology or just like those types of courses where you're going to get
Yeah.
into depth into that, everybody knows about the fight or flight
Hmm.
reflex. You get the frightening and you get the adrenaline dump, and it's like, are you going to run or are you going to fight in this
Yeah.
situation? And in that situation it's always the fight, right? It's not like we're going to retreat or whatever. We go into the fight, we run into the fight.
Yeah.
But then after there's the period of like, once it wears off, you get that there is a stage of fatigue and you need that recovery. And it's just like
Yeah.
I'm sure that constant in and out cycle of adrenaline dump and then having to rest, and like it takes a toll on you, man.
Yeah. Yeah. No kidding. Yeah. Living in that cycle for 6 to 7 months. I never did it,
Yeah,
but I can't
constantly.
imagine. I can't imagine. Yeah. It's intense, man. I appreciate you sharing that perspective. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah, after coming back from a combat deployment like that, where you're going in and out of, adrenaline to exhaustion, you come back to California, and you just want to sleep. Basically, is what
Yeah.
you're saying, and you're
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I just want to take my entire leave that I have saved up and just spend it in bed, just getting as much rest as I can.
and at this point you still have a couple of years left, but at this point you're kind of making up your
Yeah,
mind, like,
yeah.
I think I'm
So
done.
I went in, like I said, 2009. I joined in May. I didn't deploy until uh 2010, and I think I got back in like April, like late to mid April of 2011. So I was just coming up on my 2 year mark on a
Mm,
5 year contract. So yeah, I had another
shoot.
3 years after this. But I want to say sometime in the middle of while I was over there, I think from like the end of that deployment, like right before I'm coming home, I'm like, yeah, I want to get out. I don't want to do a
Yeah,
full. I mean, I was going to finish my term regardless, right?
sure.
That's what I signed up for.
Yeah.
But I guess my mindset was I didn't want to continue on and still be enlisted, right?
Hmm.
I also didn't want to be in the infantry for 20 years consecutively,
Yeah.
because they say like 4 years in the infantry puts 10 years on your body. And, mind you, I joined when I was 18. I got out at 23, and it's like, I'm 23. It's like my ankles and knees aren't supposed to be creaking like this and stuff like
Hmm.
that. So,
Hmm.
so yeah, I could definitely attest to that. But, I was always bright, right? So I was always smart. I just never applied myself when I was
Yeah.
in school, because I was young, dumb kid, and I'd rather hang out,
Yeah.
go smoke and joke and drink and stuff like that. Um, and so while I was in like middle school, high school, I had no vision of what I wanted to do, right? again, going back to my father, he's just like work, work, work. And it's like, I get that type of mentality, but I don't want to be working in a factory,
Hmm.
40 hours a day, making nothing,
Yeah.
um, as far as, um, pay goes. So I would say once I got back from that deployment, I was already dead set that I'm only going to do one enlistment, right? Mind you, I had another deployment that came after that, which was the MEU that I did, the 15th MEU back in 2012. And oddly enough, once we got back from Afghanistan, we had a change of command, so we had new leadership come in, and one of the persons that was appointed the company commander for our company was a prior recon Marine.
Mm.
And so this dude was a hard charger, man. He was a good guy. At the time it was his name was Captain Broughton. But he was a really cool dude. And he had that warrior type mentality, right? Where, this guy's just a great leader and he leads by example, and it's just like nothing's in his way. So like I was gonna say, oddly enough, like it felt like our workup, the 18 months we had back in garrison after we got back from Afghanistan prior to when we went on this MEU, it felt like the workup to do that deployment was actually tougher
Mm. Okay.
than the workup that I did to go to a combat deployment, which actually made no sense to me.
Yeah.
So like we were ready to, if we needed to deploy to combat, we were going to be that much more ready. And that same weekend when we were going to deploy, um, that's when that whole incident happened in Benghazi with the
Yeah.
embassy being overran and those Americans getting killed and stuff like that. And I thought we were just going to get on ship and hightail it over there and go whoop it on again. And I was completely fine with that because I was
Mm.
in the best physical shape of my life.
Mm.
I had honed all those skills for the last previous combat deployment I'd done and the last 18 months of just grueling training, back to back to back. And I was ready. So in that sense where you say like, oh, was one deployment enough where like, you did the combat and in a sense it was, but I was also ready and willing to go do another one while I'm in that contract in the time that I was doing it.
Yeah.
I was actually looking forward to it. I thought it was going to be like another, action packed kind of thing. But
Mm.
at the same token, it's like when I did do that first initial combat deployment, it's like I signed up. I wanted to be in the infantry role to go do combat. I got selected. I went to combat and I seen it. I saw what I had to see, and it was good enough for me, right? It's like at the casino. You roll the dice so many times, eventually it's gonna
Mm.
not be in your favor.
Yeah.
So I figured it's like I might as well get out while I'm up, so
Yeah.
to speak.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, drawing back to like how I said I was pretty bright. I was still young in my eyes, right? I'm 23 getting out after doing a 5-year contract. I didn't want to reenlist for another 4 years. And then I'm getting out at like 27, 28. And then I have to try to go back to school of all the things I haven't done in the last, maybe 8 years to a decade.
Yeah.
So I retain knowledge pretty fast. And some things even stick with me, for when I learn it once and then I know it, right? So, um, I figured what I wanted to do, like I said, I didn't want to do the whole 20 years, all that stuff. Sure, you can do lat moves and go do something else, but for me, is I did my time and I got out, and there's nothing wrong with that, right?
Did you have a plan? Like, did you know what you were getting out to do? Or did you just like know that you weren't going to stay in? Let me get out and then I'll figure it out.
No, so I would say during my time in Afghanistan, right before we came back to the States, one of my friends who I met over there, he flew in and we had like maybe 2 or 3 months left. He had been previously injured in a car wreck, and he was in Wounded Warriors for the past like 9 months or so. He got in a
Mm.
pretty gnarly car wreck.
Sure.
Anyways, I met him. He was one of my best friends, and I still talk to him to this day and whatnot. And we got back, and we kind of befriended each other. Even though I kind of befriended him here over there, in Afghanistan. We got back, and he was just like so into cars. He was like a mechanic at a car dealership prior to. to joining the military. And we met and we, kind of hit it off. And I got into cars after that. And then like while still having like 3 to 2.5 years left on my contract, I knew it was like, I want to get out and I want to be an engineer, right? I want to be like modifying vehicles or doing something like with that, right? So I knew that that was the path I wanted to take. And then sure enough, I got out in 2014 in March. So it goes to May, but I took my, 2 months of the leave I had saved up. And from there, essentially, that's where I started transitioning to the civilian portion of everything. So I got out in March, had my 2 months of pay, and I had no idea what I was going to do. I did know I wanted to be an engineer, but the whole process, nobody walked me through it and everything, right?
Applying to school, figuring out how to use your GI Bill.
Doing all that stuff. So,
did you take time off other than your terminal leave? Did you take, like, was there a gap between getting out and starting school, or were you enrolled in that first semester?
So I got out of school. I'm sorry, I got out of the military in March of 2014. And mind you, one of the staff sergeants like actually had me do, what was it called? TAPS? Is that what it was called? Where you transition?
TRS,
right?
or whatever.
So he had me do the chorus. He had me do the chorus during the initial days that would have started my leave.
Got it.
So like it cut into my leave, dude. And I was pretty upset about that because like I knew I was going to get out. And during the time of when I was slotted to get out, the battalion was going to go on another deployment, like a UDP, like go out to like train in the Philippines and go to Okinawa or whatever. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm getting out. But either way, like that same year, like 2013, and like this, like October, November, they still sent me to go to 29 Palms to do ITX for like 6 to 7 weeks, like a 35 day course where we're out there just in the field and just in the suck, And I'm like, I was salty about it, dude. I was like, dude, this just sucks, man. I don't want to be doing this. I'm supposed to be going and doing my, taps and getting out. So like it set me back. And then he actually I started doing it like the second week of like March in 2014. And I was already supposed to be taking my leave. So it cut into like my leave, that's first 5 days. So I had to sell back the days or whatever, however that works. I don't remember. But, come March 10th, 2014, I had my DD 214 in hand and I was out of that place, man. Nice. It was a great feeling, just to, the freedom or whatever. Yeah. But so I had oh, go ahead.
What were, because I remember getting mine too, and like it was like exciting but also nerve-wracking. What was your mental state when you get out? Like I feel like some people are, I don't know, more relaxed. Like my friends gave me a hard time because like I got out and I was like immediately trying to like, get to work on like, applying to schools, this, that, and the other thing and everything that I'd already been doing. But I didn't really like, I don't feel like I chilled as much as I should have in that first week.
I chilled for like 2 months, bro. actually, I chilled for 2 months because I had the leave and I chilled for more than that. So what I did,
fair. Yeah, okay.
Since I took my leave, I was out from March till like mid-May.
Okay.
And I was still getting, because you get paid the BAH and stuff like that while you're out.
You're right. Yeah, I'm misrecalling.
Yeah. So I did that for 2 months, and then in May I went ahead and I filed for the unemployment, and that'll extend you. That'll extend you. I think it was 6 months.
Yeah,
6 months of unemployment, and they'll pay it out, right? I don't know if I was able to do it like on top of also having the terminal leave. I wasn't sure, maybe, but either way, it still worked out to where like it ended in May, and then I started the unemployment right after the end of the terminal leave pay, and then once that happened, I started going to like the schools in like late June, early July, and like applying and like taking like the entrance exams, like to see where they can place you with all the mathematics and like language and how your literature and whatever you're gonna do to get placed into those courses. And so
it's funny that you bring up that unemployment thing, because when I got out, that was definitely like some people were like, oh, don't be, don't do that. You're a piece of crap kind of thing. Other people were like,
Yeah,
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 definitely take that.
what's the point of that, right?
I don't
Like,
know, but I didn't take it. And at this point,
yeah, yeah. See, that's a mistake because I think I think a lot of people just they have that same they're still fresh out of the military, especially in the
Mhm.
Marine Corps. I don't know how it is with other branches because I haven't served in other branches, but like with the Marine Corps, it's always like you have to be stigmatized for trying to,
Yeah.
seek help in some way, right?
Yeah.
Whether like you're in the military and like you're like, oh, I got to go see the corpsman or whatever because my ankle hurts or whatever, and you're like,
Mhm.
oh, you're weak or whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
sure, while you're in, yeah, it might fly, and it takes a while for that to kind of wean off once you get out of the military.
Yeah.
And so like it's literally there to help you. It's money that you're going to get, and you rate it because you had your service or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I got out and I had all my 100%, benefits of like what I'm going to use.
GI Bill
Uh,
benefits. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And
So
so I
did you,
started.
did
I'm
you,
sorry. Go ahead.
I mean, engineering's a long road and like,
Yeah,
to kind of not put the cart before the horse, but I mean, for you specifically, I mean, it's like 5 years minimum at this point for engineering. And I
yeah.
think you said it took you 8 to graduate. Is that how
It was
long?
about it was about 7 or 8, but I wasn't taking courses for like one of the semesters. I had a lull to where I was like out of school after
Yeah.
like taking 3 semesters, so basically like a year and a half. I stopped
And you had
and
like COVID and stuff, and like
yeah, because I started attending school in Oceanside. I went to Miracosta College, and I was there. I started in the fall of 2014. So
yeah,
I got out in the Marine Corps, had my benefits for my leave that paid me out till May. I took my uh, unemployment, and then while I was collecting unemployment from like May to November, those 6 months, I started the school in August of 2014. So I was also getting unemployment and the BAH from attending
mm,
school full time.
it's a lot of money.
Um, yeah, it's enough to get you by,
Not bad. Yeah,
but yeah, exactly, not bad. So I did that fall semester. I did spring of 2015. I did spring of or fall as well of 2015. And then when it came around time for spring of 2016, something happened. I don't remember what I hadn't registered for classes and it was just like stressful and everything. And for me, it's like I know I mind you, these past year and a half I've been attending the school in my mind and what my educational plan showed was that I'm going to be a engineer. So I'm doing all
yeah,
the courses, right? I'm taking starting out from like college level pre-calculus. I'm taking my trigonometry and then
yeah.
moving up to like
When you
calculus.
started, did you think you were going to be able to do it within the confines of the GI Bill, 36 months, 4 years of school? Like, was that? Did you
No,
think that you? So you never thought that was going to be realistic from the beginning?
realistically, I don't think so, right?
Yeah.
And that because I had so much to do, right?
Hmm.
And so that ties into why I stopped going for that one semester in the spring of 2016. Mind you, I had like joined a band and I was playing with my brothers and playing some shows around San Diego, and it was cool, whatever. But I stopped doing that because what I wanted to do, I wanted to go work
Yeah.
and make money. And with the money I made, I wanted to go ahead and pay out of pocket for the courses I was taking at a community college level.
Uh,
That way, once I get up to the university level where I want to go eventually when I transfer, I could use a GI Bill towards that as opposed to exhausting all of it at a community level and then
yeah.
having to pay for the university out of pocket, which would have been, a lot more expensive.
Totally.
So, so I
Yeah.
did that for a while. So I worked at a car dealership for about I want to say like 7 or 8 months from basically January till about August of 2016, right? And I was working at the time, it was this is 2016, and I was making like $10 an hour, dude. It sucked,
Yeah.
you know. I was like working like 40-hour weeks, dude, 5 days a week, 8 hour days, nine because I was taking an hour lunch or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, and that'd eat up my entire week, right? And it's like I'm working straight, and getting like, you see your paycheck after 2 weeks, and it's like 6 to 750, and it's like, dude, what am I doing? I'm paying rent, I got a
Mm-hmm.
car note, I got all this stuff I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
pay, and it's like I just wasn't jiving with that. And the whole thing is like I wanted to get promoted within that company, right? Because I was just a porter, so I was like washing cars and like moving cars,
Yeah.
right? They
Yeah.
come in for the maintenance. I move them and I take it through a car wash, rinse it off, wipe it off, and then if the customer isn't there, I would go put it in the parking garage structure, and then when they come over, go retrieve that
Yeah.
car, whatever. I was doing that, and it's like, mind you, I had known about cars, so I had bought myself a sports car while I was in the military, and this is the whole reason of why I want to be an engineer, right? Because that's one way to learn something, right? Like for me to learn to work on cars, I bought an expensive car. And it's like you want to learn how to do that stuff yourself. That way you don't have to take it to the dealership
Yeah. Yeah.
and get
Sure.
charged an arm and a leg
So,
to to do that stuff, right?
how far along were you when you in your engineering degree? Because I want to touch on VR&E because it's not everybody knows that there is a way to get 8 years plus or minus of school covered through VA benefits. So
Uh-huh.
I want to make sure that we get to VR&E and your
Yeah.
experience with VR&E slash voc rehab, whatever
Uh-huh.
you know it as. And I guess if you want to, you know, one, like as you're coming to the point of GI Bill exhaustion,
Uh-huh.
what's going through your head of like, shoot, am I gonna have to take out loans to pay this off? How am I gonna
Yeah,
finish this
yeah.
degree?
Okay, yeah.
How'd you find out about voc rehab and how that kind of
Okay.
play out?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and get to that.
Cool.
So that was what, 2016. I was finishing up that job. So what I wanted to do there, like I said, I wanted to pay out of pocket, but it wasn't working. I wasn't taking any courses while I was going to that
Mm,
place and I wasn't getting paid, I was getting paid crumbs. Um, so that was $10 an hour, and this is 2016, right? And I'm paying for rent and everything. I wanted to move up to a lube tech because at least the lube techs they got paid $2 more per hour, right? So instead of 10, I'm making 12. Wow, big difference. But the thing is, in my mind, I was working 5/8, right? 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. The
yep.
lube techs would work 4/10s.
Mm,
So it would give me a little more space and flexibility to if I want to take courses on those days off, I'd be able to do it. And I kept begging that dude in the line, one of the managers there. I was like, hey, promote me. Like, I want to do this. I know how to do this. It's monkey work, dude. Doing tire rotations and freaking oil changes is simple. And I knew
yeah.
a lot more than that. And it's like, I'm smart and everything. And what really like broke me in that sense was like some dudes got hired maybe like 2, 3 months after me. And before I even left, those people, even though I had been bugging that manager, those people got a promotion before me. And it's not because I wasn't having a freaking terrible work ethic, dude. I was busting my ass over there, moving all the time, moving, having a great work ethic and great attitude.
Yeah.
And I wasn't happy there. No, I didn't get what I wanted. And I think during that month in like July, I wrecked my car, dude. I slammed it into a freaking pole and I totaled it.
So
And they were asking me to come into work and stuff. And like I had to get like like a rental. And I
yeah.
had a lot of modifications, like, car parts that I put on there, whatever. So I was going to the junkyard because I kind of knew the guy and I was trying to take off the parts to at least maybe get some money back or whatever. I had a buddy that had a similar car. So I was like, I'll give you some of the parts, right? Just give me some of your stock ones. So I got to put back the stock parts on it. And he's like, okay, cool. I did that. And then I was just so tired of that job, dude. Like I didn't even throw in my 2 week notice. I just stopped showing up. I'm like, dude, screw this. Right. Um, and from that point on, I had registered for classes. This was like late July, early August, right? Fall
Mhm.
semester's coming up. And I threw in the towel for that job. I said, dude, I used to make more money on disability sitting on the couch eating potato chips than I am here.
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry, unemployment.
Yeah.
I used to make more unemployment sitting around doing nothing than I am here dedicating 40 hours a week of my
Yeah.
life to something that's not even trying to promote me. I
Yeah.
said, screw that. I threw that job to the side and I went back to school and I never looked back. So that happened in 2016. I did the fall semester 2016. I did spring and fall of 2017, and then I did spring of 2018. That was my final semester at the community college level.
Mm.
So So once that happened, I started putting in applications everywhere to go ahead and transfer, right? Because I wanted to go to university. But during my time when I was in like community college, I may have not taken it as serious. I had a couple of C's in my transcripts,
Yeah.
a good amount of them, right? And so like unbeknownst to me in this area where I was going to school, they had automatic, it was called the TAG program. It was like a transfer acceptance guarantee
Yeah.
was the
Yeah. Yeah.
acronym.
Yeah.
And so as long as with certain schools in California, the universities, right, the UC schools, as long as you maintained a certain amount of GPA, like on your transcript overall, they would admit you without even anything, right?
Mm.
And I nobody told me about this until it was like a semester or two before I was due to transfer, right? And like I didn't, it would have been impossible for me to pull my
Yeah.
my
GPA.
overall GPA up that much because of how many C's and stuff I had. I probably had like around a 2.7, 2.8 GPA. And it's
Yeah.
like I need a when you tell me I need a 3.4, it's like, dude, I never was academic like that in
Hmm.
my life. And so needless to say, I didn't get into like some of like the UCs I wanted to. I don't think I even got it. None of them. I think I put in applications here left and right. None of them really accepted it. But I'd say for anyone getting out of the military and going through community college, look and talk about look for people that know what they're talking about. Someone like a counselor or someone that's going to help you through it,
Yeah.
and do the FAFSA, the financial aid, and that's going to help you out because it's free money. It's money that they're gonna give you. It's not a loan. They'll give you this money for free, and it's maybe like on the sum of like sometimes $3,000 to $5,000 per semester.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
The Pell Grant is like pretty big now. I think it's like, yeah, $3,000 a semester. Plus, if you're in California, you just get out of the Marine Corps, you're single, presumably. Like, oh shoot, what was the benefit for California? Where the board governor's fee waiver. So like
oh,
you can go to,
see, I haven't heard of that.
yeah, it made Miracosta completely free, and then got paid
Oh
out,
yeah,
the Pell Grant. So it was a
okay.
decent opportunity.
So I had finished the community level in like spring of 2018.
Hmm.
And during like my Christmas break, like 2017 to 2018, like late December, early January, I had been putting in applications for some places. And I remember when I was looking on the website that like has all of the schools right in California,
Yeah.
not just the UCs, but I was looking at CSUs, like Cal State universities.
Yeah.
I looked at a couple of them. They have like Fullerton, and they have the one that's like in San Marcos. They have them here spread out. Um, and I found one that was like peculiar to me. It was just like right there on the water. I was like, huh, what's that? And I looked up, I clicked into it, and it was like this California Maritime Academy. I was like, okay, what's this?
Mm.
And then like on the front page of it, on their little like user interface, I saw like there was like students and they were in uniforms and stuff. And I'm thinking like, oh, this is kind of like I read into it more and I said, oh, this is like pseudo kind of military. I was like, I could probably use, that if it's a type of like military type school with like, some of the discipline and stuff
No kidding. So
having been a
you saw the
prior
uniforms
vet.
and you weren't turned off by like, I don't do the uniform thing again. It
Not,
appealed to you.
yeah, it appealed to me because I
No
was,
kidding.
even though I had been out, now around this time, probably close to 4 years almost. And
Yeah.
they're like, oh yeah, you can wear your service ribbons that you earned in the actual military on your
Hmm.
uniform and everything. I was like, "Oh, that's kind of cool." And I was like, what the heck? And I submitted an application there and I got accepted. And this is like I wasn't very like well versed in what the school was all about. I knew it had a mechanical engineering program.
Yeah.
So I had done a couple of things. I had like taken a trip from Southern California and drove all the way up there in the Bay Area. Also went to like Santa Cruz, like UC Santa Cruz
Yeah.
with the banana slugs or whatever. And I was looking to go into that school and they didn't offer any program that had mechanical engineering tracked,
Yeah.
right? So they had an electrical engineering, but no mechanical. And like me from having already taken like physics two where like you get into like
Yeah.
electricity and magnetism and all that stuff. It just
Hmm.
turned me off. Like I didn't want to have anything to do with electricity as far as like electrical engineering, right? But this other school, the one I'm talking about, where I attended and eventually graduated from, was California Maritime Academy. I went there. They offered the mechanical engineering. I went and did like the whole tour. They show you around. There's like a ship there, and you learn. A lot of it's hands-on stuff. Mind you, you do have the courses of that you're attending in classrooms and stuff. And
Did you know that this was probably going to put you back on a boat? Like, was that part of the ads when?
yeah. It was part of the ads, but it was also
Okay.
cool, right? Because like you get to go to these places, new places in the world you've
Yeah.
probably never been.
Yeah.
Even though in the military I did go around other places, like when I was on the MEU and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I knew I was going to go around, and like before I joined, like even as a freshman, like, oh yeah, this summer, which was like maybe like 8, 9 months away. Oh, we're going to be going to the Caribbean, and we're going on the ship, and it's like you're training
Cool.
to do stuff in the ship and go to the Caribbean. But not only that, like also the financial comparisons they're making at that school. They're comparing it to people who graduate from Stanford, and they're
Okay.
saying that within like 10 years, like of the people that they draw from graduating from Cal Maritime and Stanford, that their salaries were comparable. I'm like,
Mm.
that's pretty impressive considering Stanford is like, I'm pretty sure they're private, but either
Yeah, I think
way,
so.
it's Stanford, dude. It's gonna be a lot of money.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I went there and I did my engineering program, and it was hard. It was rough to say the
Yeah.
least. Because this is the very first year as me being a freshman. That's when I was coming up on my GI Bill, about to be exhausted, right? Um, Going back a little bit, back in 2016 when I quit that other job, I had been putting in for, I had scheduled stuff with the VA, right? To maybe see a claim, make a claim, and state what I'm going to do and whatnot, and
Yeah.
try to get seen to see if I can rate any disability.
Yeah.
And at the time, I got seen in like 2016 to go do like an audio test to hear to they're taking what my baseline was when I was in the military to what it is now. And sure enough, I had tinnitus and stuff, and so they granted me like 10% disability for that. And then
Hmm.
I also like tore a ligament in a tendon a tendon in my right ring finger while I was in, and I had a scar in my palm because they had to do a surgery. And
Mm.
so I got 10% for that. So overall, at the time, before I even went to Cal Maritime, I rated a 20% disability, right? Which was only paying me like maybe
Yeah.
350 or so a month.
Yeah.
But my time was about to exhaust as far as my GI Bill, right? And during this time in the spring semester of 2019, mind you, I had just had my son. So
Mm.
uh, my girlfriend was pregnant at the time, and I had just had my son, like basically the same week the semester started. So I was already off to a race, having to take care of
Yeah.
a newborn kid while also having to balance a full time or more than full time, right? Because full time's 12 units. I was
Yeah.
taking about 8 to 18 units. And so I was doing a full time and a half at school,
Yeah.
and also balancing my life with a newborn. So it was it was hell on earth
Intense.
to say the least, right? Because it was so much of a different shift
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
when I first came into school. All right, my first semester, I'm a brand new freshman at this university. It's like, dude, I gotta hit the wheel or hit the ground running, right? And so like I'm going in, my classes don't start till 9:30, but I'm going in at 7 in the morning. I'm going to the library, I'm doing work, and a couple hours prior to class, like every day.
Yeah.
And then the second semester when I have my kid, it's like, yeah, I'm going in, but I'm going in to sleep, for like a couple hours before my classes start. Because they had a nice, cool little veteran center over there. It was actually pretty
Gotcha.
nice.
Gotcha.
And they had it with like couches and a cot and everything. And if you want to close a door in one area where all you're chilling with some of the vet buddies that I just met, and it was a nice little area there. But
Are
I would
are,
go over there,
are
raise and
those veterans? Are
pass
they the
them.
ones that turned you on to VR&E, or how did you find out about VR&E when you were running out of GI Bill? But yeah, man, we're getting into your experience with VR&E because I think that this is a pretty incredible benefit that a lot of people don't know is available to them or may be available to them if they're eligible. And it's it's basically another way to get another 4 years of GI Bill essentially. So I'd love to hear your experience with it, kind of like things that you learned along the way, and whatever headaches that you ran into that you could maybe help prevent other people from running into.
So when I first started going to the Maritime Academy, I knew I was like within my last like year of benefits remaining, right? So I had to figure out something. Luckily enough for me, while I was a freshman, there was a representative of the county for veterans, and she would come into the campus every like maybe 3 weeks to a month.
Mm.
And we also had other people from another individual from like a counseling area, different city would come over and say that, oh, we do counseling over here for veterans and this and that. And so this happened my first semester when I was going there in 2018 in the fall. And she kept on coming over and like specifically like just hounding all the veterans, hey, get this done, get this done, get this done. You want to get your she's looking out for us, man. Like she's like, oh, I'm at 100%. That's what she told me. Like, oh, I'm at 100% disability rating. You need to do this, this, and this, and this, and get all your ducks in rows, basically. And so she's like, you need to do what's called, at the time she told me you need to do what's called the ITT. It's called, or ITF. It's called intent to file.
Mm.
You need to call the VA right now. Let them know that you're looking to increase your disability rating, right? So it was simple for me. I called them. I told them, hey, this is my date. I want to do an intent to file.
Mm.
I'm looking to get my disability rating increased for yada yada yada, whatever XYZ reasons.
Yeah.
And they're okay. And so all the VA did was like, okay, they took down my information. And then it's hard set to that date, which for me was like in like October of 2018. Like I was barely like maybe like a month and a half, 2 months into this school. Went past that semester. Now I'm in the fall of 2019, just had my son, and I'm finishing up. I'm like beginning to middle of this semester. And once I finish the semester in the time frame of like May, I think I was only going to have about maybe a month to a month and a half left remaining on the GI Bill, which is what is the chapter 33.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chapter 33 or chapter 31, because voc
33.
rehab's chapter one, they're either or.
Yeah.
Either way, I would have only had 1 month left remaining on my benefits from when I was going to start attending the summer semester, which is 2 months while I'm going on this cruise on this ship. Right, we actually go out to sea and do a training, and it's about 60-day cruise.
Mm.
So I'm like, man, it is coming up, and I'm getting like nervous and everything. And I went ahead and from speaking to that representative, I was told about VR&E, which is the vocational rehabilitation and education. And also one of my buddies who was a Marine vet, oddly enough, and he was at that school and he was a prior infantry Marine. He was telling me about it, and he was like, hey, yeah, do this, they help you out. And so my understanding of it was as long as you have a service connected disability rating, even if it's like 10%, like at the minimum,
Yeah.
you go over there, you appeal your case to these people, and then you go do the paperwork, and then they'll grandfather your rate in. You had to have you had to be on the lower end of your benefits remaining, right? So I had to show that I have an educational plan. I'm working towards the goal I want to, and it's basically just them being like, okay, we see what you're trying to tell us, and we're going to go ahead and grant it to you. So at that time, like I said, I only had about maybe like 3 months left, because once I finished the semester, I was going to have maybe about a month left, and I was going to exhaust it if I would have gone on a summer cruise. And the thing is, with the VR&E, all you had to do was have at least minimum of 1 day of benefits remaining on your GI Bill and they'll take your case and they'll go ahead and they'll grandfather it in. So you still get that BAH rate based on the zip code of where your attending school is, right? Otherwise, it would have been subsidized. So I got that grandfathered rate of like 2,800 a month for BAH at
Okay.
the school I was at. Because if I would have let it exhaust and go past and used all my GI Bill
Yeah.
and then try to go do it, they would only give you a subsidized amount, regardless of how, if you're attending the school full time or not. So what they did was they grandfathered that rate in for me, and they're like, okay, I spoke to the people. I had to go to an Air Force base that was like maybe 20 miles up the road from where I was living at the time. I saw the person, exchanged emails and whatnot, but when I was there, I filled up my paperwork, told them my case, showed them, hey, I got 20% disability rating, whatever, and they grandfathered that rate in that I was getting for the BAH. Otherwise, had I, like I said previously, if I would have let it exhaust, they would give me a subsidized amount, which would have been like $600 a month, which is absolutely nothing considering rent's almost 2,000 a month in the Northern California. So I got that rate. I got that rate grandfathered in, and then I was also at the time taking out school loans, so that I could support my family because I just had a newborn, and I'm not trying to have a newborn, attend school full time, and have a job while I'm trying to balance all this stuff. It just wasn't going to fly. So I was doing that. So I was taking out sums of like, the maximum amount I could on loans, even though I am getting paid the BAH to go to school and support myself. It doesn't really help you if you're like, you have a family, I would say, right? If you're a single person on that income, you could definitely do it. But yeah, I was just trying to be comfortable, getting maybe an extra 10,000 in loans for the semester, and then, I'll pay it later or whatever. So I went ahead, did that, did the voc rehab, got all those benefits, grandfathered in. And then additionally to that, they help you with certain things. You just got to talk to whoever your counselor is at the moment. So, they'll help you if you need like school supplies. You do the paperwork and emails, whatever, send receipts. So like I was able to get a $2,700 laptop for free, right?
Dang.
So like, yeah, right. So like I just let them know, hey, this is for school. I need this, this, and this, and it's going to help me towards, because I need to do this coding or whatever. I need to do this education. Okay, well, go buy it, go purchase it, send us the receipt, and we'll reimburse you.
No kidding.
They do it for school supplies. I think the only thing that they don't really do it for is like maybe uniforms or like something work related.
Okay.
But everything else, like, you need supplies, you need a backpack or a calculator or something, and it's like within their budget, like they'll reimburse you.
Okay.
So it was a really good thing. And like I mentioned with the county representative, so she told me to go do that intent to file, like I said recently. I was like within the last 4 months of when I had gotten the voc rehab, because I did the voc rehab in March of 2019, and my stuff was my benefits were going to be exhausted by like middle of May to maybe like late June.
Yeah.
So I got it grandfathered in, and then I already had the intent to file on the back burner. And during that entire year, from like October of 2018 to like October of 2019, I was doing also counseling with one of the other individuals that I was mentioning. He came to the school and told us they do counseling over there. So I was doing my counseling, going over there, kind of like therapy, talking, and pretty much how we are right now, kind of shooting shit. And so I did that for about a year. And then while I'm doing that, I'm also building my case, because these people are in kind of like cahoots with like the VA and everything. So they're hearing me out. And finally, like about like 10 or 11 months after I put that intent to file in, I was actually seen by a medical professional.
Took that long.
And
wow.
Yeah. She did about I want to say like a 2 to 3 hour interview with me.
Wow.
And we talked. And then from all the information that they had compiled over the previous year, 10 to 11 months, with all my accounts of like what I experienced, the combat trauma, and, a lot more in depth than what we've gone into in the videos and stuff, they concluded, I did exhibit the signs and symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, right? And so that increased my disability I was sitting at a 20% rating previously when I did the voc rehab, and this is tacking on an extra 70%. So,
Yeah.
but the way that the math with the VA works is not like 10 and 10 equals 20.
Yeah.
So the extra 70% got tacked on to 20, and it ended up being like an overall of 80%.
Mm.
So now, as opposed to getting, 350 a month, I was getting around like 2,000 to 2,100 a month, and that's for life. But the thing is, since I had put in that intent to file
Yeah.
back in October, and now it's October of the next year, I'm getting back paid the difference of the 20% to the 80% for the entirety of that year, right?
Wow. Wow.
So that's a very important step to do for anybody who's,
Intent to
looking to,
file.
yeah, for anybody who's looking to get their disability even started or get it increased, because you only have about 5 years from the time you get out of service to where you can put a claim in, because then after that it drops off. And the thing is,
What?
like,
I never heard
yeah,
that.
and the thing is, some of these people, again, going back to like that stigma, right? Like, you might have and exhibit some of these problems mentally, right, or
Mm.
physically, and like it's like, oh, I'm a tough guy, I don't need the help. But it's like, why not get it when it's there for you, right? And I noticed I for sure had PTSD when I was out, right? I'm like getting angry, I'm irritable, I'm frustrated sometimes, like just the weather, if I'm sweaty, or I just don't want people to touch me, I don't want to be around. And it varies, right? It's not like it's the crazy mental thing where it's like, oh, I'm gonna pick up this gun and go shoot everybody,
Yeah.
like how most people,
Yeah.
think about it, how we're, in today's society, how we have the problems with mass shootings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's not all. It's a case to case basis, and it depends on from person to person, right? Because like, if I have my buddy to my left or my right in a combat scenario, and we're all in the same area and we witness the same thing, it can
Mm.
affect the people around me differently than it affects me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's all different mentality. That's why, like, I had it, but yeah, I always had the positive mental attitude, right? Like, but I had the mentality of like, expect the worst but hope for the best.
Hmm.
So when the worst comes and it happens and you have seen it, you're kind of already knowing prior to it. You're like trying to, like, I guess, like, foreshadow it. I don't know. What would be the correct term? I can't. I just kind of had a brain fart
Yeah.
right now, but like,
Anticipate. Yeah.
essentially anticipating, yeah,
Right.
like what's going to happen. That way, when it happens, it's like you kind of already knew what the severity of this thing could be, but it,
Yeah.
may not affect you as much. And there's some people that, unfortunately, they lose their minds and end up taking their own life, and it's a big thing
Yeah.
that's happened throughout the military community. I will say
Yeah.
that it's a hassle. You have to fight for it, but
Mm.
you have to be willing to do it. And it's hard if you have no input from like a mentor or from someone to help you kind of guide you through the process. Because if you're just
Mm.
trying to do it on your own, it's going to be difficult.
Yeah.
And honestly, I feel like it's made purposely difficult to be that way. That way, it discourages some
Mm.
of the veterans that actually have these disabilities, and the ones that rate it, and they're too either, I don't know if lazy would be the correct term, but they're
Yeah.
just not going to go out and get it from themselves if it's not presented on a platter in front of them, right?
Mm.
And I believe there's a lot of veterans in our day and age that are suffering from any type of, whether it be a physical or mental type of illness or something like that,
Yeah.
to where, some of these people, they just either want someone to talk to or someone to reach out to, and it's not always readily available. But it's like you have to get past that
Yeah.
um, stigma of like looking weak and go out and seek the help yourself. So it's like no one's going to hold your hand and do it, right? No one
Totally.
did it for me, but there were those counselors and those representatives, and I'm very grateful that they were kind of like telling
Yeah.
me to go get it done. And it's like, yeah, I listened, because it ultimately comes down to you doing it yourself.
Yeah.
But there's resources available out there, to
Yeah.
be able and go get all that stuff
There are.
done.
There are. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I see ads for like a vet guardian and all those things constantly. So there's the DAV, there's the whatever you call them,
Yeah.
nonprofits. So then there's the
The
for-profits.
Department of, what is it? Was it Disabled American Veterans or something like that? DAV.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they I think they gave me a card when I was first getting out, like the first day, but there's stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
honestly, I'm pretty comfortable where I'm sitting at with 80%, and I don't even know if I'd be able to put in more because I got paperwork inside my, my desk over here that's like for like toxic exposure that I haven't even put in, and I don't know if I'm able to or whatnot. So I might need to even talk to some more people about that because while I was deployed on my first combat deployment overseas in Afghanistan, I was exposed to all those things like the burn pits,
Yeah.
that a lot of people are claiming now with
Yeah. Pack deck.
Either with respiratory things or because you're just burning everything out there. You're burning plastic, you're burning batteries, human waste, bullets, whatever, everything that needs to get waste is getting thrown into these burn pits. And, you might not think of it there when you're younger and you're over there, but it's like, you're wafting in this toxic fumes and stuff. And it's no good.
Yeah.
But I guess the main takeaway I'd say would be for like anyone trying to go through it, like, you got to do some of the work yourself. Yeah, try to look around and ask around, ask veteran buddies. Uh, Look for people that are going to be those representatives. Go seek counseling if you need it, and it's not going to be easy, honestly. Like my entire trek of going through like school and stuff, taking these high load engineering courses. I'm like, you have all that anxiety of like taking tests and stuff or whatever. I'm like, man, it was just like easier being in the Marines, being deployed in a combat zone than like having to focus and do all this work. But
yeah,
it's going to be hard either way. It's not easy.
Yeah, no, that's I appreciate you sharing that because I think everybody that's getting out thinks that I don't know. There's like an expectation that like it'll be easy to get the benefits that you earned. But also there's the expectation and the reputation of the VA to be difficult. So it's kind of like, it's a hit or miss.
Kind of two-sided sword right there. Yeah. You have to, they're there to help you, but you have to also fight for it. And if you get denied, just keep trying, I guess. Keep going for it. But it also depends on a case to case basis, like depends on what you did in the military and like how like to show it to them, right?
Yeah.
And if you're in the military and you hurt yourself, but it's not documented in your medical forms, it's just hearsay if you're trying to claim it to the VA, right?
That's true.
So one thing, I would say, while you're active and you're inside the military, document everything.
Yeah.
Because that stuff is your security blanket, so to speak. Because if you just want to be this guy that's looked at as a hard charger, right? And you're going around, you break something or you twist something, right? Or something hurts, you dislocate a shoulder here, whatever it may be, you twist anything, right? Or you break something and you don't get it documented and you get out, it's like now you're just gonna have to deal with this pain that may be affecting your daily life or debilitating you in some way.
Yeah.
But you have no compensation, even though you rate it.
Yeah.
But you were too lazy or too caught up with having that type of machismo to yourself. That is was pretty prevalent, at least while I was in. I don't know, it's been over a decade since I've been out now.
Yeah.
But you got to document stuff. You got to document.
It's good, man. It's good. Well, I'm glad it ultimately came through for you and you were able to, finish out your degree with it using VR&E. VR&E is I've done some research on it. I used VR&E for finishing grad school. It's a sweet benefit. And so, I think anybody that's expecting a longer road of education, it's a worthwhile thing to look into. So,
and I think like you and I previously spoke about some of this thing off the podcast, or like where I mentioned something about like the Forever GI Bill. I think that's something to look into as well in the STEM fields for anyone who's getting out of the military and planning to go into STEM. I believe they may grant extensions based on if you're in one of those STEM courses or in that STEM field. As long as you're showing completion towards getting to your goal,
Yeah.
they'll go ahead and they'll grant it. But yeah,
Interesting.
I used VR&E. It was a great program. They helped me when I needed things, and it was pretty straightforward. At times, it was a little bit difficult reaching some of the people, like sending emails and just waiting forever, right?
Yeah.
Like similar to the VA, it's like there's hurry up and wait. We
Yeah.
were used to that in the military, but it's a lot of waiting. But when they do help you, it's awesome. And because of it, specifically just with the VR&E, I was able to do my entire schooling and not have to worry too much about that,
Yeah. That's
even though I
huge.
was also taking out loans on top of it so I could be a little more comfortable. But I'm in the process of paying those back now. And it's only the sum of like maybe 50K, which isn't sounds like a lot, but I graduated, I got my degree in mechanical engineering, and now I work on ships and stuff. And
Yeah.
it's a pretty well paying job. And I get to relax and be at home. So like
Nice.
I can work 6 months out of the year and still, pull in six figures, which is great.
No
So
kidding.
I'm doing pretty good right now, and it's actually pretty fun. I like the job, very hands on, and I am away from the family a bit at times. Like for instance, I'm about to go ship out and go to Korea. I'll be over there about 3 or 4 months, but
Mm.
once I get back, I get to submit my vacation. I'll be at home 3 or 4 months getting paid. So
No
it's
kidding. Wow.
it's a good gig, man.
Yeah. Right on, man.
So
Right on. Glad you found something you like, and that's able to, do the job for you and your family. That's awesome. So
yeah, it's good. I mean, it's tough on the kids because I got a 5-year-old and I just got a 6-month-old daughter right now.
mm,
Um, so as long as I'm back for the holidays and stuff, everybody's happy. We're all
yeah.
happy.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you, David. I appreciate you sharing your story, sharing your perspective, and sharing your lessons with VR&E and all that stuff. And so it's good to see you. I'm glad you're doing well, and
Hmm.
look forward to staying in touch, and have hopefully your time in Korea goes well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you invited me to do this too. It's a cool opportunity for me to be able to kind of like share a bit of my backstory and also,
Yeah.
put some information out there for some people who may be looking to uh see what they can do, like looking for the right things, like looking in the direction but may not have the most knowledge on how to approach it. But a quick Google search, you can look at VR&E. Also, when you're going to initially do all your things at school, the people there know what they're doing as far as like the
Mm-hmm.
registrars who are responsible for taking in veterans and doing all of the paperwork for you to get your GI Bill and all that stuff like that.
Yep.
I would say it's a pretty straightforward process, and as long as you got you know your head on pretty tight, you should, and you stick to it, you should be able to persevere. I think one of the main things that I was able to actually do this type of degree, um, you know, I was only so smart prior to joining the military. And like once you're into college and you're taking these upper level courses, it catches up with you. You're
Yeah.
like, you fall into the average, of like everybody. But as long as you're not super indecisive, because there's those types of people
Mm.
that like I don't understand. They go in, they're like changing majors like every like
Constantly.
a
Yeah.
year or other semester, and it's like, dude, that's if you're indecisive like that, you're not going to get anywhere. You have
Yeah.
to like for me, it's like I do the engineering. It sucked, and it sucked more the more I got into it.
Uh-huh.
I failed a couple of math courses a couple times and had to retake them 2-3 times. Like
Mm.
with Calc 2, differential equations, couple classes here and there. When I first had my kid, I uh I messed up a lot. I took a 17 unit semester and I probably didn't pass like 10 of those units.
Dang.
That was my second semester in university. I almost got put on
Dude.
academic probation.
Good for you for
And
sticking it out, man. Because there's a
and it's
lot
like,
of people that would have
yeah.
dropped out and said, "Screw
Oh,
this."
absolutely. I think at the school I went to, it's like around like 52% of the people who initially go in, as far as for engineering, I think graduate. So it's like almost half drop. And it's like, dude, you just got to keep going. And I think the discipline I had previously from being in the military, I was able to apply it. And
Yeah.
it's not only discipline, but it's hard work. And it's like, dude, you got to just do it constantly, man. And so
Yeah.
I'm glad it's over because
Yeah.
overall, the grand scheme of things, from when I started school to when I finally graduated, was about the span of 8 years. So
Yeah.
I started in 2014. when I barely started community college, and that was in the fall, and I finished in the fall of 2022. So
Yeah.
I've been out for about a year, almost a year and a half now, and working for the shipping union, and it's great, and
Good, man. Good.
I have a lot of fun.
Are you on social at all? If anybody's got any questions for you, can they reach out to you, or do you not exist online?
No, I'm pretty non-existent online.
Good
I
for
don't
you.
really do anything. All I have is really is like a TikTok, and I spend too much time on there browsing, you know. But yeah, as far as like Facebook and IG and all that stuff, I mean, I already waste enough time doing
Good for you, man.
my scrolling and stuff. So
yeah.
I don't really do too much of it. But I mean, I guess if anybody would have questions, maybe they could reach out to you, and then I could kind of
connect them. Yeah.
I'll be in touch with you and stuff, and you can connect them and whatnot.
Sounds good. Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate the time, and talk soon.